The phone rang too late, and in that moment, I knew something had broken. I was in the kitchen flipping waffles on the griddle. Emily was humming on the rug with her patched-up teddy bear. Lucas, barefoot, slept on the couch with dirt still on his feet. Everything felt normal, until it didn't. Yesterday's newspaper was still folded on the table. Richard never forgot the paper, not once. The ring of the phone echoed through the entire house. I picked up with butter still on my fingers. On the other end, silence for a beat. Then came the voice that would change everything. "Mrs. Collins?" The receptionist from the veterinary clinic sounded uneasy. "I'm so sorry to call this late, but Richard left his truck here yesterday afternoon and, well, he never came back to pick it up." My hand turned cold. The waffles began to burn. I hung up without a word. The image of him leaving that morning flashed through me like lightning. His usual rushed kiss on the forehead, the navy blue coat, the briefcase I'd sewn for his birthday. But his eyes, something was off. A flicker. A silence that screamed. I closed my eyes, the air leaving my lungs in a defeated sigh. I walked to the door. The wind carried the rustle of dry leaves skimming across the street. The sky looked grayer than usual. Through the kitchen window, I saw Mrs. Barnett, our neighbor, watering her plants, deliberately avoiding eye contact. Her movements were stiff, restrained. She knew. They all knew. Everyone but me. When Richard finally came home that night, it was nearly 11 p.m. He entered quietly, as if nothing had changed. The scent of a woman's perfume clung to the air before he even reached the kitchen. Sweet, foreign, lingering. I stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen, arms crossed, my heart ablaze. "Where were you?" My voice came out low, sharp, like glass. He didn't answer right away. He took off his coat slowly, kept his eyes down. "Just a long meeting," he said, running a hand through his hair. "The vet clinic called. Your truck was there all day." He froze. A long pause. His jaw clenched. Then he laughed. A hollow, empty laugh. "Margaret, don't be dramatic. You're just a housewife. You wouldn't understand how things work out there." Those words. You're just a housewife. They cut through me like blades. But I didn't cry. Not then. My pride held my tears hostage. I took a deep breath, took a step back, looked at him with a calm I didn't even know I had. "Maybe I don't understand how the world out there works, Richard. But tonight, you just showed me exactly how it does. And I'm done pretending I don't see it." That night, while he slept on the couch, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried like I'd never cried before. Quietly. So I wouldn't wake the kids. So I wouldn't scare anyone, except maybe myself. But somewhere inside that cry, a seed was planted. A whisper that said, "This isn't the end, Margaret. This is where it begins." The next morning, the sun rose without shine. A pale beam of light crept through the kitchen curtain as I brewed coffee, my eyes still swollen from the night before. Richard had left early, not saying a word. He didn't even look at me, as if I were just a wall, a piece of furniture, something unimportant. Emily walked in, dragging her blue blanket, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mommy?" "Why were you crying last night?" I swallowed hard. I knelt beside her with a weak smile and eyes that still held tears. "It was just a bad dream, sweetheart." But it wasn't. After dropping the kids off at school, I wandered through town like a ghost in my own skin. The streets of Willow Creek smelled of damp earth and fresh bread from the corner bakery. Every face that passed seemed to carry that same look, pity dressed up as politeness, a small wave here, a tight smile there. Richard's words echoed in my mind like a hammer. "You're just a housewife." Was that true? Being a mom, cooking, cleaning, holding a home together, was that really just something? That afternoon, I sat on the wooden bench in the town square, the autumn leaves swirling around my feet, and I thought of someone, Mrs. Helen. She lived 3 blocks up from us. A retired teacher, widowed, always surrounded by books and sharp words. I'd always admired her strength, how she held her head high even when people whispered that she was too alone. I walked to her house like someone going to confession. She opened the door in a floral apron and greeted me with a warm, steady smile. "Margaret Collins, it's been a while." Her voice was grounded but kind. "Come in. You look pale." "Want some tea?" I sat in her green velvet armchair, surrounded by overflowing bookshelves and the soothing scent of chamomile. "I don't even know where to start," I confessed, staring at my trembling hands. "Start with yourself," she said gently. "That's always the best place." So I talked, like I'd never talked before, about the perfume on Richard's coat, the screaming silence between us, the ache of feeling invisible in my own home. She listened quietly, her eyes understanding every word before I could say it. "Have you ever thought about going back to school?" she asked, lighting a candle in my dark room with just that question. I laughed nervously. "At 39? With 2 kids, and not a dollar to spare?" And with a sharp mind, she leaned in. "Margaret, you've always had a hunger to learn." "Remember the school fairs you planned for your kids? You'd dive into everything, botany, history, even physics. The world didn't stop for you. It's just waiting for you to turn back and face it." That afternoon, I walked out of Mrs. Helen's house with 3 borrowed books and a knot in my chest. Hope. I started slow. I hid the books in the broom closet, studied after the kids were asleep, took notes between recipes and grocery lists. With every page, the ache inside me began to transform into a quiet, growing strength. One night, Lucas caught me at the kitchen table, notebook open, pencil in hand. "Mom, are you doing homework?" I smiled, my heart tight. "I am, honey. I'm trying to learn new things." He stepped closer and whispered, "So, are you going to be the teacher now?" I held back tears. "Maybe. One day." And in that moment, something bloomed, because that one day had already begun. The days that followed were filled with a different kind of silence. Not the peaceful hush of a sleeping home, but the heavy, loaded kind, the kind that clings to the air like humidity before a storm. Richard could sense something. Maybe it was the light in my eyes, or the way I stopped replying the way I used to. I still made dinner. I still folded the laundry. I still smiled at the kids. But something inside me had shifted, and he felt it. One Wednesday evening, I came home late from the store, after stopping by Mrs. Helen's to return one of the books. Dinner wasn't on the table yet. Lucas was doing homework in the living room. Richard was waiting for me in the kitchen. "Where were you?" he asked, arms crossed. "I stopped at Helen's, borrowed some books." "Books?" His brow furrowed. "What kind of books?" "History, literature. I've been studying." He let out a dry laugh, the kind that stings more than it sounds. "Studying for what, Margaret? You gonna teach poetry at the corner store?" I stayed quiet for a moment, just watching him. His anger wasn't about the books. It was about what they symbolized, my independence. "It's not for anyone, Richard. It's for me." He stepped closer. The eyes that once captivated me now held a strange, dark edge. "You don't need any of that. You've got a house, kids. I provide everything you need. You provide comfort, Richard, but you don't give me respect." And I'm finally learning the difference. He stared at me like I was a stranger. That night, he turned away from me in bed, his body stiff with silence. I stayed up with the lamp on, highlighting a line in a book by Maya Angelou. "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." I went to sleep with those words pressed against my heart. The following week, I received a call from a community school in Shelbyville, about 30 miles away. They were enrolling for an adult GED program. Classes were on Saturdays. Mrs. Helen had submitted my name as an interested candidate. "This is your chance, Margaret," she told me, her eyes shining with that stubborn spark. "I'll drive you. Don't worry about the ride." I held the phone for a long while after the call ended. My fingers were sweating. Fear came in waves. Later that afternoon, while I was folding laundry in the bedroom, Emily bounced in. "Mommy, the school lady called. Are you really going to school?" I sat on the edge of the bed. She climbed into my lap and cupped my face with her little hands. "I want to go with you." I smiled, holding back tears. "Not yet, sweetheart. But one day, when I'm a teacher, you can be my little helper." She giggled and ran off. I stayed there, alone, holding one of Richard's clean shirts, one that smelled like a perfume that wasn't mine. And in that moment, I made my decision. Yes, I was going. That Saturday, I put on my best jeans, the least faded pair, and a light blue blouse Emily said made me sparkle. I grabbed my bag with a fresh notebook and a blue pen. And when I stepped out the front door, with Mrs. Helen honking from her old car, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Pride. The classroom smelled of chalk, old wood, and cold coffee. The plastic chairs squeaked with every movement, and the blackboard bore the ghosts of decades past. It was a modest building, with tall windows and yellow-tinted lights, but to me, it felt like a sanctuary, my new beginning. Around me, other women and a few men sat in quiet anticipation, each carrying invisible burdens. There were gray-haired grandmothers, young mothers with heavy eyes, and men with calloused hands. All of us had come for the same reason, to begin again. I held my notebook close to my chest like someone holding a newborn, my hands tingled with nervousness. My eyes darted across the room, unsure where to land, until a calm, confident voice filled the space. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Ms. Evelyn. Welcome." She was tall, with round glasses and the kind of smile that told you she had lived through storms and survived everyone. When her gaze met mine, I felt like she could see straight through to the scars on my soul. The class began with simple questions. "What's your name? Why are you here?" When it was my turn, my voice trembled at first. Margaret Collins." I took a deep breath. "I want to start dreaming again. I want to show my kids it's never too late." She nodded, smiling with her whole face. "That's more than enough reason to start, Margaret." As the lesson went on, I realized just how alive my mind still was. Geography concepts, historical dates, even dreaded grammar. At first, they all felt like strangers. But there was freedom in saying, "I don't know this, but I'm ready to learn." At home, I hid my school materials in the broken oven in the basement, the one place I knew Richard would never look. At night, after the kids were asleep, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and my books open wide, underlining words and whispering dates under my breath. Richard, more distant by the day, barely noticed. He came home late, if he came home at all. And when he saw me bleary-eyed from studying, he would scoff, "Studying again? And where's that going to get you?" Instead of answering, I just smiled. Because I already knew. It's going to take me far away from you, even if I hadn't said it out loud yet. One night, Lucas got up for water and found me at the table. The soft kitchen light fell across my open notebooks. "Mom," he said, his voice groggy, "you really are going to be a teacher, huh?" "I am, sweetheart. I'm working hard for it." He rested his head on my shoulder. Then, "Can I call you Miss Collins?" I chuckled quietly, a lump rising in my throat. "You can, but only when I'm teaching, okay?" "Okay, Miss Collins," he whispered, then padded back to bed. That little moment, that little phrase, more powerful than any diploma. At the next class, Ms. Evelyn complimented my participation. After everyone left, she pulled me aside. "Margaret, you've got a real gift for explaining things." "Have you ever considered actually going into teaching?" My heart skipped, like someone had just flipped on every light inside me. I never really thought, well, I did, but I always assumed it was too late. It's never too late, my dear. Never. The months that followed passed like a gust of wind, not because they were easy, but because they were intense. My life became a constant balancing act. I'd wake up before dawn to make breakfast, lay out the kids' uniforms, rush through cleaning the house, and later, when everyone was asleep, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a notebook in my lap and my cold feet tucked beneath the chair. Richard remained indifferent. His schedule grew more erratic, his excuses more vague. Late meeting, helped a friend with his truck, Had to sleep at the farm to deliver papers early. I stopped listening. Because something else had taken root inside me. Focus. One Tuesday night, while I was solving math problems at the kitchen table, Richard came home earlier than usual. His face was tense, his steps heavy. I tried to close my notebook quickly, but not quickly enough. He walked over slowly, his eyes cold, fixed on my books. "What the hell is this?" he asked, his voice low but full of menace. "They're my books. I'm studying," I said without hesitation. He grabbed one of the notebooks and flipped through it roughly, like he was searching for something forbidden. Suddenly, the air in the kitchen thickened. "You lied to me?" he barked. "You said you were visiting your aunt Saturday, and you were studying instead? It's not a lie when you already knew all I wanted was a little peace." "Peace? Peace, Margaret? You have peace. You have a house, kids, everything." "Everything, except respect," I replied firmly, my voice tight with unshed tears. He stood silent for a second. Then, with a sudden motion, he slammed the books to the floor. The crash echoed like a gunshot. My notes scattered under the furniture like fallen leaves. "This ends now," he snapped. "Tomorrow I'm talking to that old woman Helen and telling her to stop filling your head with this crap." My body trembled, with fear, with anger, with shame. But I didn't back down. "Don't you dare go near her. And this doesn't end, Richard. What is ending is your control over me." He stared at me like I'd just spit fire. "You want to destroy this family? I'm not the one doing that. You've been doing it on your own for months." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the kitchen wall shook. I stayed there, on my knees, gathering crumpled pages like they were pieces of my own heart. I took a deep breath, wiped my eyes, put the pages back in my notebooks. The next morning, he didn't even glance my way. He grabbed his things and walked out without a word. And in that silence, something was sealed. A few days later, Emily brought me a folded note. "Lucas wrote it," she said, her eyes curious. I opened it carefully. The handwriting was messy, letters tilted and uneven. "Mommy, don't give up. We see you. You're getting strong. I like the new mommy." The ground vanished beneath me. That night, while they slept, I made a promise to myself. I would keep going, even if I was scared, even if I was alone. Because if my children could see the woman I was becoming, then maybe, just maybe, I could too. That Sunday, the sky over town was a dull gray, as if even the weather knew what was coming. The silence inside our house wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the kind that comes before a breaking point. Richard showed up before lunch. He was holding a cardboard box and kept his eyes down, like a boy caught doing something wrong. The kids were playing in the backyard. When he stepped inside, I let the dish I was washing slip into the sink and turned around slowly. "I need to talk to you, Margaret," he said, voice rough. I nodded, saying nothing. He sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared so many silent dinners. "Laura, the woman from the clinic. She's pregnant," he said, staring at the wood grain of the table. "And I'm moving in with her." I didn't feel shock or rage. What came was a heavy, hollow quiet. A kind of old exhaustion, like the truth had been living inside me for months, just waiting to be spoken out loud. "And your children?" I asked, voice steady, not raised. He hesitated. "I'll send money. Visit when I can. I know it's not ideal, but—" "It's not ideal," I cut in. "It's cowardly." Silence swallowed us. He didn't have the strength to argue. He stood, picked up the box. "You can keep the house. It's the least I—" "No, Richard, I'm not asking." "I'm claiming what's mine," I said, meeting his eyes like I never had before. He nodded. For the first time, he looked ashamed. Minutes later, I watched his truck turn the corner, that box in the passenger seat beside him. And then I shut the door, locked it, and sat down on the living room floor, my hands shaking. Emily walked in, wide-eyed. "Is Daddy coming back?" "No, sweetheart, but it's okay." Lucas came in right after her and sat beside me. "I knew, Mom. I saw the suitcases. But it's okay. We're strong, right?" I held them both with the kind of strength only mothers know. That night, after tucking them into bed, I walked through the house in silence. Every wall held memories, but now they were also making room for something new. I grabbed my notebook, sat at the table, and rewrote everything: my goals, my schedule, my plan. And at the very top of the page, I wrote, "For me, for my children, for the woman I'm becoming." The following week, I started looking for work. With my GED certificate in hand and an empty resume, I went door to door with a timid smile and shaking knees. Finally, Mr. Marvin, the owner of the local shoe shop, offered me a part-time position. "It's what I've got for now, Margaret, but I can pay you fair, and the hours match up with your kid's school." I thanked him like he'd handed me gold. I started that very next Monday. I mopped the shop floors, helped customers, kept track of orders. Nothing glamorous, but that first paycheck felt like a trophy. That afternoon, I took the kids out for ice cream. Nothing fancy. But for the first time in a long while, we were smiling. Together. It was January when I got the letter. The school where Lucas and Emily studied was looking for a second-grade classroom aide. The note was signed by the principal herself, Mrs. Reynolds, a serious, soft-spoken woman who rarely smiled. "Margaret, we've heard about your dedication to your studies and the respect you've earned in the community. We need someone like you." I sat on the bed, holding the letter for several minutes, reading and rereading it like it was a dream I didn't dare wake from. My eyes filled with tears, not from fear, but from pride. For the first time, someone saw me not as someone's wife, but as someone. When I told the kids, Emily shouted, "My mom's a teacher now!" Lucas hugged me tight. "I knew it, Mom." "I knew you'd make it." On the first day, I arrived early. The schoolyard smelled of damp grass and fresh chalk. The sounds of children's voices, backpacks swinging, sneakers scuffing the pavement. It was music. My music. The lead teacher, Miss Johnson, had a soft voice and perfectly pinned gray hair. When she introduced me to the class, she said, "This is Miss Collins. She'll be helping us this year, and I expect you to treat her with the same respect you give me." That sentence made my heart race. Miss Collins. I wasn't just Margaret anymore. I was someone. The classroom was vibrant and chaotic. Laughter, crumpled paper, pencils rolling across the floor. But also curious eyes, raised hands, and little reading and writing challenges. Some students clearly struggled. Others just needed someone to truly see them. And I was there, to see each one of them. At the end of my first week, Mrs. Reynolds called me into her office. "I've received wonderful feedback about your work," she said, with a subtle smile. "You have a gift, Margaret. Have you considered continuing your education, maybe a college degree?" My stomach flipped. The word college still felt like it belonged to a world far from mine. "Think about it," she added gently. "We don't have many women like you here, with courage and light." That night, I sat on the front porch with a cup of tea. The night sky stretched out above me. The kids were asleep. The silence around me felt different now, fertile, a space where thoughts could grow, not to wound me, but to push me forward. I began writing again. Short thoughts, reflections, pieces of my life. I kept them in a little blue notebook tucked under my bed. Writing felt like breathing deeply after years of suffocating. One afternoon, Emily brought me a drawing. It was a woman with glasses, holding books, surrounded by smiling children. And at the top, written in wobbly letters, "My mom teaches with her heart." I hugged her with tears in my eyes, because that little drawing meant more than any title ever could. Winter passed like a cold sigh, and spring arrived bringing not just flowers, but something I had almost forgotten how to feel: hope. Applications had opened for a public school teaching position in the neighboring town. The school was Willow Ridge Academy, well known for its excellence, but also for its extremely high standards. I hesitated, a lot. How could I compete with freshly graduated candidates? How could I sit in front of a panel of evaluators with only an in-progress teaching certification? It was Lucas who made the choice clear for me. "Mom," he said, "remember what you told me when I was scared to join the science fair? That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing it even when you're scared." He looked at me with those serious eyes of a boy who had grown up too fast. "So go, Mom. Go even if you're scared." In that moment, I realized my courage had taught my children, and now they were teaching me how to give it back to myself. I prepared like never before, studied late into the night, took practice tests, reviewed pedagogy, literature, teaching methods, slept only 4 hours a night. My school supported me with recommendation letters, even Mrs. Reynolds called me into her office to say, "Margaret, no matter what the outcome is, you've already won." On test day, I wore my navy blue dress, the same one I wore for my first class. I pinned my hair back with care and brought along my blue notebook, filled with my writings. It was my good luck charm. The exam was long, technical, demanding, but I wasn't alone. I carried with me every silent tear, every sleepless night, every drawing my kids had taped to the fridge. When the results came out, I was at school, grading assignments. Mrs. Reynolds appeared at the classroom door, phone in hand. Margaret. Her eyes sparkled. First place. The world stopped. Silence filled me. Then came a warmth, like the sun rising in my chest. First place. I walked outside and sat on one of the wooden benches in the courtyard. The breeze brushed my face. I thought of everything. Of the Margaret who cried in the bathroom so her kids wouldn't hear. Who hid books inside an old oven. Who was told by her husband she was just a housewife. No, I was never just anything. That weekend, we had a picnic. Me, Lucas, Emily, and Mrs. Helen. We sat in the park on checkered blankets with lemonade and easy laughter. My daughter touched my hand and said, "Mom, you're kind of like a superhero, right?" I smiled, my eyes welling up. "Maybe, sweetheart. But you know, I only figured that out after I lost everything and rebuilt one day at a time." If you've made it this far, I want you to know something. There's a Margaret in all of us. A woman who was broken in silence but rose again, who was dismissed yet kept going, who was left behind and still chose to move forward. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter how long it's been since you last dreamed. It's always the right time to begin again. It's always the right time to rediscover who you are and rise. If this story touched your heart, like the video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs a reminder of the strength they already carry inside. And remember, dear one, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be faithful to the woman who's being reborn inside you. Until the next story.